Hello, everyone. Today I want to talk about the Matt Gaetz signature. It shows that Matt Gaetz is blunt, direct, and he hides. Matt Gaetz is a Republican politician and stands to accused of having had paid sex with minors and driving them over state lines, which is considered trafficking. So let's have a look at his signature and see what it tells us about him from a handwriting analysis perspective. On top, you see the signature of Matt Gaetz. And the first thing that we notice is it's written fairly speedily, fast. So he's a fast thinker. He moves fast. But it's also written above the provided guideline, and that is generally linked to having a lofty opinion of himself. We also see that we can read Matt, but the last name is illegible. If you didn't know it was Gaetz or Gates, you would probably not make it out. And that is generally considered disguise. These are people that do not want to take responsibility because they don't want to be recognized. Notice also that the capitals, the M and the G, are mildly oversized, and that suggests self-importance, potentially as compensation for feeling unimportant. The mid-zone structures are fairly small, and that means that the upper zone and the lower zone override the mid-zone. Now, the upper zone is our imagination zone, and the lower zone is the zone where we meet our physical imperatives. And so his mid zone is unable to control the connection between the upper zone, the imagination, and the lower zone, the action. And therefore, thought become actions without any breaks. And that suggests poor impulse control. We also see successive higher strokes. Successive higher strokes are when two following strokes, the second one is higher than the first. We see that in LL. Over here it is TT. We also see it in Ys. And over here we see the G in Gets. This is linked to putting more importance to the opinions of others, and therefore these people tend to worry about what other people think of them. This is called self-consciousness, also a fear for ridicule. We also see that in general, the TT increases in size. The second T is not only higher, but also drops below the imaginary baseline. And therefore the second T is quite a bit larger. That is an increase in energy at the end of a task. The task is writing your name, Matt. People that do that tend to be direct and blunt. They want the last word. They try to overwhelm and override you because they increase their energy at the end of the conversation. They want to be right. The line I drew is the imaginary baseline that he uses. We can see it is mildly slanting down, which means pessimism. But also we see that certain letters, the first stroke of the M and the last stroke of the T, drop below the baseline. And that suggests Matt has subconscious uncontrollable urges. And this is linked to often deviant behaviors and people that overstep social boundaries without realizing their emotional impact on others. Letters that do not return from the upper zone back to the baseline, in this case the imaginary baseline, do not fully test their imagination, their thought processes, how it fits in reality. And therefore, on a mental level, they jump to conclusions. They may also be delusional in the worst case scenarios. We see sharp angular connections on the bottom. You see that they're in the M in the mid stem. We also see that from the A to the T and the T to the T. And that suggests aggression. These people have action immediacy. They want to move forward. The distorted small letter E in Gaetz is almost gone. Cannot even recognize it as an E. Just remember that the letter E represents listening. The E stands for ear. That is your memory technique. Distorted E's mean people do not listen to others very well. The leftward T-bar in the last name is a move back to nurturance, to quote unquote mother. These people have a stronger need for personal value, reassurance, and affection. The distortion in the lower zone means it is a distorted view for our physical imperatives. Physical imperatives are food, shelter, safety, etc., but also our sexual needs. Interestingly, at 7, we see a stroke that does not belong. And that suggests a sudden pen drop, tension, and anxiety. He lost control over his pen. Down and leftward strokes in the lower zone mean self-centeredness. These people know what to do and they have that need. Remember, leftward strokes, need for personal value, reassurance, and affection. And so down and left is an action-oriented stroke for yourself. And that means self-centeredness. These people take care of their own needs. In worst case scenarios, they are narcissistic. Interestingly and kind of unexpectedly, we see at 9 a little dot at the end of a stroke. That is an ink bleed. What happens there is that he wrote Matt quite fast and then just for a moment hesitated and the pen continued bleeding into the paper. So it's a hesitation stroke. And hesitations reduces spontaneity. We also see on top, I used the example of the G, sharp tops. We also see that in the TT, for instance, and in the T in Gaetz. Is an individual mentally reactive. So they jump to conclusions. So we see somebody with poor impulse control, quick thinker that potentially hides behind a facade, disguise, illegibility, remember? Now there is another signature that has very similar strokes. We see at 1 that a letter dropped below the baseline, poor impulse control. We see sharp angular connection strokes at the bottom, aggression. We see a down and leftward stroke. The last letter is P. And that stroke moves left and down, narcissism. The sharp tops refer to mentally reactive. And we also see an increase in energy output. The P should not be that high. It should stop at the mid-zone level. And that is an individual that is direct, blunt, and tries to overwhelm. So Matt Gaetz and Donald Trump have strong similarities in their signatures. And from what we know and observe, strong similarities in behaviors. And so Matt Gaetz loves Donald Trump because birds of a feather flock together.